All right, let's go. Number 10. In 1936, German archaeologist Wilhelm Koenig excavated a small clay jar near the village of Kuyut Rabua, outside Baghdad, Iraq. The object dated to approximately 250 BCE, the Parthian period. It was roughly 14 centimeters tall, sealed with an asphalt stopper, and fitted with an iron rod wrapped in a copper cylinder. Inside, Koenig found traces of an acidic residue. He published his analysis in 1938. His conclusion: the jar was a galvanic cell, a battery. When Willard F.M. Gray, an engineer at the General Electric High Voltage Laboratory in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, built a working replica in 1940 and filled it with diluted grape juice, it produced between 1.5 and 2 volts of measurable electric current. The principle it operates on, two dissimilar metals separated by an electrolyte, was not formally described by science until Alessandro Volta published his work in 1800. There was not one jar. Excavations at the same site produced at least 10 similar vessels, each with the same structural configuration, all from the same era. But here's where the story becomes genuinely disturbing. If Koenig was right, artisans in the Parthian Empire were performing controlled electrochemical processes 2,000 years before Michael Faraday formally described the laws governing electrolysis. They weren't stumbling onto electricity, they were using it, deliberately, repeatedly. And then, at some point between 250 BCE and the 19th century, the knowledge vanished. Not evolved away, not replaced by something better, just gone. So completely gone that humanity needed 2 millennia to rediscover a principle that was, apparently, already known. What's left is a clay jar sitting in the Iraq Museum in Baghdad, a building that has survived war and looting, maintaining its quiet charge in the dark, waiting for someone to ask what else was once understood and then erased. Number 9. In 1978, a farmer in Jiangshan County, Zhejiang Province, China, was draining a pond when he discovered an unusual cave entrance. By 1992, systematic excavation had revealed not one cave but 36. Each chamber was enormous, some reaching heights of 30 meters and depths of 140 meters into the hillside. The total volume of solid siltstone removed across all 36 chambers exceeds 1 million cubic meters. Every surface, walls, ceilings, support pillars, bears an identical pattern of parallel chisel marks, spaced at roughly 60-degree intervals, uniform to the point of appearing mechanically produced. The caves are now called the Longyou caves. The pillars were left in place at precise structural intervals, calculated to bear the load of the rock above without collapse. Chinese archaeologist Chu Keikong led the initial excavations. His team found no bones, no tools, no inscriptions, no artifacts from the construction period, and no records in any Chinese historical document from any dynasty of the caves having been built. But here's where the story stops being remarkable and starts being something else. China has one of the longest continuous traditions of written record on Earth. Chinese imperial bureaucracies documented floods, harvests, military movements, and provincial construction projects across thousands of years. The Great Wall is documented. The Grand Canal is documented. And yet, 1 million cubic meters of hand-carved underground complex, located in a populated province, generated not a single surviving historical reference from any period. The excavation was real. The labor was real, representing by modern estimates millions of person-hours of work. Someone spent generations building these chambers. And whoever they were removed from history with a completeness that is, itself, more frightening than the caves. What's left are 36 silent chambers cut into the Chinese hillside, their chisel patterns preserved under thin sediment, their builders unnamed, their purpose unknown, officially acknowledged and officially without explanation, waiting in the dark as they may have waited for 3,000 years. Number 8. In the Peruvian coastal desert, a series of lines was etched into the surface of the earth sometime between 500 BCE and 500 CE. They were first formally documented in 1927 by Peruvian archaeologist Toribio Mejia Zespe. In 1939, American historian Paul Kosak photographed them from the air and grasped their scale. The Nazca lines cover approximately 450 square kilometers and include geometric shapes, animal figures, and straight lines, some extending for up to 8 kilometers across a terrain that is neither flat nor uniform. Modern surveying equipment has measured those straight lines. The deviation from a perfect straight path across 8 kilometers of undulating desert is less than 0.1%. In engineering terms, that is a margin of error smaller than the tolerance required for modern highway construction, achieved by people using zero confirmed surveying instruments on a scale invisible to anyone standing on the ground. But here's where the story becomes genuinely unsettling. The lines required a precise, scaled, geometric plan, translated from a small original to a surface the size of a city, with sub-percentage accuracy, across terrain the planners could not see in its entirety from any accessible vantage point. Maria Reich, the German mathematician who studied the Nazca lines from 1946 until her death in 1998, concluded that the Nazca people possessed a system of geometric scaling functionally equivalent, in its practical outcomes, to modern surveying mathematics. Not approaching it, equivalent to it. In 500 BCE, in a desert, using tools that remain unidentified. What's left is the desert floor, still dry, still preserving every mark. The lines, still pointing at alignments, still debated. Still measuring a precision the civilization that drew them could not have known would outlast it by 2,500 years. Number 7. In 1986, Japanese diver Kihachiro Aratake was searching for hammerhead sharks off the southern coast of Yonaguni Island, the westernmost point of Japan. What he found instead, at a depth of between 5 and 40 meters, was a massive stepped structure, flat terraces, right-angle corners, straight walls, and geometric formations carved from solid mudstone bedrock, measuring roughly 250 meters long and 26 meters tall. The structure has generated over 3 decades of peer-reviewed argument without resolution. Japanese geologist Masaki Kimura, who has logged more dives on the structure than any other researcher, has documented features difficult to attribute to natural geological processes. Sharp 90-degree corners, parallel walls, flat surfaces at consistent angles, carved channels, and what appear to be aligned stone pillars. The debate between natural formation and artificial construction remains formally unresolved in academic literature after more than 3 decades. But here's where the story becomes genuinely chilling. The Yonaguni region was above sea level during the last glacial maximum, when global sea levels were approximately 120 meters lower than today. That land was submerged by rising post-glacial seas around 10,000 BCE. If the monument is artificial, built by human hands, it was built before 10,000 BCE. That places it in the Paleolithic period, before agriculture, before Çatalhöyük, before every civilization currently recognized by mainstream archaeology as capable of monumental construction, before the story of human civilization as we currently tell it has even started. What's left is a structure 25 meters below the Pacific, its corners still sharp, its terraces still level, fish moving silently through its corridors, its age officially unresolved, and its builders officially unknown. Number 6. The Great Pyramid of Khufu has stood near Giza since approximately 2560 BCE, 4,500 years. Its construction is broadly documented. What is discussed far less often is its internal climate. The average temperature in Giza swings widely, exceeding 40 degrees Celsius in summer, dropping near freezing on winter nights. The temperature inside the King's Chamber, deep at the heart of the pyramid, remains at approximately 20 degrees Celsius year-round. Consistently, regardless of what the desert outside is doing. The pyramid covers 53,000 square meters of base and contains an estimated 2.3 million stone blocks, ranging from 2.5 to 80 metric tons each. Simple thermal mass, the argument that the stone absorbs and releases heat slowly, does not fully account for the consistency. French architect Jean-Pierre Houdin's 2007 computational analysis demonstrated that the internal ramp and chamber geometry creates passive airflow patterns that redistribute heat through the structure, functioning as a climate regulation system with no mechanical components. But here's where the story stops making comfortable sense. A climate system, engineered into a 2.3 million block structure, oriented precisely to cardinal directions, is not a side effect. It is a specification. The designers understood their structure needed to maintain a stable internal temperature, and they built a system to achieve it. Without thermometers, without computational modeling, without any instrument we have been able to identify. It has operated without maintenance, without power, and without a single moving part for 45 centuries. What's left is a granite chamber at the center of a desert mountain built by human hands, maintaining room temperature every day of every year since the last block was placed. The mechanism precise and silent, and still not fully explained. Number 5. At 3,825 meters above sea level in the Bolivian Andes, high enough that trees cannot grow, lies the archaeological site of Puma Punku. It is part of the broader Tiwanaku complex and dates to approximately 500 BCE based on radiocarbon analysis. The site consists of enormous stone blocks, some weighing up to 131 metric tons, scattered across a highland plateau as though thrown by some catastrophic force. The blocks are not rough cut. The primary material is andesite, one of the hardest stones in the Andes, effectively impossible to finish cleanly with the copper and stone tools available to Andean cultures in 500 BCE. Yet the H-shaped blocks at Puma Punku have internal angles precise to fractions of a degree, straight edges confirmed flat to within tenths of a millimeter, and interlocking geometries requiring no mortar and leaving no visible gap. Archaeologist Alexei Vranich of the University of California, who led excavations at the site in the 2000s, has noted that the precision is not an approximation of modern machining standards, it is the outcome. But here's where the nightmare begins. Puma Punku was violently destroyed. The 131-ton blocks are scattered as if thrown, evidence of a catastrophic flood or seismic event after construction. The sequence is a monument requiring engineering precision we cannot replicate, destroyed by a force violent enough to scatter aircraft-weight blocks, followed by complete cultural discontinuity. The people who built it did not survive to explain it. What they left behind is a precision without a process, a result without a method. What's left is the plateau, the thin air, and the andesite blocks lying under the Andean sky, their angles still exact, their builders gone, their destruction permanent. Number 4. Above Cusco, Peru, at 3,700 meters elevation, stands a fortress. Construction began under the Sapa Inca Pachacuti in the mid-15th century CE. The fortress is called Sacsayhuamán. Its outer walls are built from limestone and andesite blocks, the largest weighing an estimated 200 metric tons, assembled without mortar, without wheeled vehicles, without iron tools, and without draft animals capable of moving loads of that magnitude. The gaps between those 200-ton stones are consistently less than the thickness of a standard sheet of paper, half a millimeter or less. Across contact surfaces spanning several meters, between blocks weighing 200 tons each, placed without binding material, on a hillside at altitude. Modern stonemasons using diamond-tipped cutting tools and laser measurement equipment have replicated this tolerance on small demonstration blocks under controlled conditions. They have not replicated it at scale because the engineering physics required to move a 200-ton block and achieve sub-millimeter placement accuracy against another 200-ton block, on a slope, at altitude, with no mechanical assistance we can identify, has not been satisfactorily solved. But here's where the story becomes genuinely disturbing. When Spanish conquistadors arrived in Cusco in 1533, their chroniclers, including Pedro Cieza de León, wrote that Sacsayhuamán could not have been built by humans. These were men who had seen the great fortifications of Europe and the Mediterranean. They looked at this and concluded it was the work of demons. They were not being superstitious. They were making an engineering assessment. 5 centuries later, we share their confusion. The explanation has not arrived. What's left are the walls, still standing above Cusco after 600 years of earthquakes that have destroyed colonial buildings below them. The Inca stonework intact, while newer construction crumbles. The joints still tight, still measuring half a millimeter. Number 3. In County Meath, Ireland, in the valley of the River Boyne, there is a mound. It was built approximately 5,200 years ago, around 3,200 BCE, predating the Great Pyramid of Giza by roughly 500 years, and Stonehenge by at least 1,000. Its construction required 200,000 tons of water-rolled river stones, turf, and clay. It is called Newgrange. Inside the mound, a 19-meter stone passage leads to a central chamber. Above the entrance is a rectangular opening, called the roof box, which is the only aperture in the entire structure that admits direct sunlight. On the winter solstice, December 21st, for a window of exactly 17 minutes, sunlight passes through that roof box, travels the full length of the passage, and illuminates the chamber floor. On no other day of the year does this occur. The alignment is accurate to 0.1 degrees. The builders calibrated their structure to a single moment in the astronomical year across a 19-meter passage with a precision of 1/10 of 1 degree, using no metal tools, no written mathematics, and no measuring instruments that have ever been found. But here's where the story stops being about engineering and becomes something harder to hold. The people who built Newgrange had no writing. They were Neolithic farmers, the same technological category as communities elsewhere building simple field enclosures. And yet they possessed solar astronomy precise enough to engineer a 0.1 degree alignment, transported 200,000 tons of stone to construct a sealed mound around a single moment of light, and carved the entrance stone with spiral symbols whose meaning remains undecoded. The chamber illumination serves no agricultural purpose. It was built to mark a specific, astronomically defined instant in the Earth's orbit, because they understood that instant. They committed 200,000 tons of stone to it. Then they vanished without explaining why. What's left is the mound, still sealed, still admitting its 17 minutes of solstice light every December, with the same precision it has maintained for 52 centuries. The spiral stones still carved at the entrance, the builders unnamed, their language gone. Number 2. In 1930, workers clearing jungle for a banana plantation in the Taraba River Delta of Costa Rica began finding stone spheres, dozens of them, ranging from a few centimeters to over 2 meters in diameter. The discovery was reported to archaeologist Doris Stone, who published the first systematic account in 1943. Today, several hundred spheres are known. They are made of granodiorite, harder than granite. The largest weighs approximately 16 metric tons. Within the measurement tolerances of modern instruments, they are geometrically perfect spheres. The largest sphere deviates from a true geometric form by less than 2 centimeters across its full 2.57 meter diameter, a sphericity tolerance of roughly 0.8%. For a 16-ton object shaped without metal tools, without lathes, without any rotational machinery that has been identified, by the Diquis culture of pre-Columbian Costa Rica between approximately 600 and 1000 CE, that figure is, in the words of a 2010 analysis by the Geological Society of America, extraordinarily precise. The nearest granodiorite quarry is 50 to 100 kilometers away across mountainous jungle. There is no evidence of how the stones were transported. There are no unfinished spheres. There are no tools associated with the finished ones. But here's where the story becomes genuinely unsettling. The spheres were originally arranged in specific geometric patterns. Lines, triangles, parallelograms, documented by Stone before plantation development scattered them. Some recorded arrangements appear to point toward magnetic north with the same precision as the spheres themselves. Others appear to mirror astronomical alignments. The people who placed them knew exactly what they were doing. Then, the Diquis culture collapsed in the 16th century under European contact and disease, and the knowledge of what the spheres meant, and how they were made, went into the ground with the last person who knew it. What's left are perfect stones sitting in museum gardens and on private estates across Costa Rica. Their makers dead, their meaning gone, their perfection preserved by the same hardness that made them so difficult to create in the first place. Number 1. In the ancient city of Baalbek, Lebanon, a city continuously inhabited for at least 9,000 years, sacred to the Phoenicians, rebuilt by the Greeks, expanded by Rome into one of the largest temple complexes ever constructed, there are 3 stones in the western retaining wall of the Temple of Jupiter. They are called the Trilithon. Each is approximately 19 meters long, 4 meters wide, and 3.6 meters tall. Each weighs an estimated 800 metric tons. They were placed at a height of roughly 8 meters above ground level, fitted in a row without mortar, with no visible gap between them. The largest capacity mobile crane currently manufactured, the Liebherr LTM 11200-9.1, has a maximum rated lift of 1,200 metric tons under optimal conditions. It stands over 100 meters tall when rigged and uses computer-assisted load distribution systems. It represents the current ceiling of human lifting technology. Someone moved 3 800-ton stones, raised them 8 meters, and placed each one with the precision of a joint requiring no mortar, 3 times. In the quarry 900 meters from the temple, a fourth stone still lies partially cut from the bedrock. Its estimated weight is 1,650 metric tons. It is the single heaviest object ever cut by human hands. It never moved. Nothing built since has been able to move it. But here's where the full weight of this entire list comes together in one location. Baalbek is not a mystery on one level. It is a mystery on every level simultaneously. The Trilithon predates the Roman construction built on top of it. The Roman construction is itself a feat that would challenge the modern world. The quarry holds a stone so massive it remains where it was cut, unmoved after 2,000 years. And beneath the Roman foundations, excavations have revealed pre-Roman stonework of undetermined date, suggesting Baalbek was an engineered sacred site long before the Phoenicians, Greeks, and Romans each added their layer of impossible construction on top of what was already there. Each civilization inherited an engineering problem from the one before it. The deepest layers have not been reached. What's left is a valley in Lebanon, the columns of Jupiter still standing at 20 meters, the Trilithon locked beneath them, the 1,650-ton stone lying in the quarry a kilometer away, unmoved and unfinished, waiting for an explanation that has not come in 2,000 years. Click the video on screen now and make sure to subscribe.